For the missions, yes, for the mission statement.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Welcome, everyone. Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at all HPH meetings is voluntary. All discussions that take place at affiliate-led meetings are confidential. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Zoom meetings run by HPH leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of HPH meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guests speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members. So we ask that you take from them their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Carol. That was wonderful. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Craig, who is also a friend, and I just feel so grateful every time he's here. I want you all to know a little bit more about him. He is a prolific writer, and he's written many books about the afterlife. But the last time that he was here, he was telling us about his newest book, which is Evidence Beyond a Reasonable Doubt That You Will Never Die. And I love that title. You are an eternal spiritual being having a temporary physical experience. Your purpose for being here is to learn lessons, grow in love and compassion, and enjoy life. When you graduate, you will go on to new, exciting experiences, but you will never see endings again as you see them on Earth now. People you love will be with you on your new adventures forever. That was that book that we talked about. He is also the author of Your Eternal Self, as well as a writer and trainer of writers with 38 years experience. He is the director of the Center for Spiritual Understanding and on the boards of the Academy of Spiritual and Paranormal Studies and the Association for Evaluation and Communication of Evidence for Survival. He has also hosted several uplifting conferences here in Scottsdale through the Afterlife Research and Education Institute, or AREI, as we all know it. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming R. Craig Hogan, PhD. Welcome, Craig.
Oh, thank you. It is such a joy to speak to this group. This group is a shining light in humanity right now. You're having an effect upon as many people as any other group is having. And I think that is such a mission that you're fulfilling. And of course, you've been called for it. This group, every one of you has been called to be here. So you're here for a reason. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. And we're so grateful to you for showing us the way in terms of all of these wonderful books that you've written and the conferences that you've led. Mm-hmm. And I want to leave time for people to be able to write questions that are pertinent to them, by maybe having you explain to us a little bit about your own journey, if you could do that for us.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm happy to talk about it. I began early on expressing my desire to understand spirituality and understand the life after this life. I actually, when I went to college, was pre-ministerial, thought I would become a Lutheran minister, and did not become a Lutheran minister, but still admire the Lutheran faith. I then was an administrator at Wheaton College. So I was into the Baptist scene then, and as an administrator there, I was in the Billy Graham Center as the administrator for outreach there. And so I spent quite a bit of time there. And after that, after I left the religion, didn't leave the people in religion, didn't leave the wonderful sentiments about religion, but left the organized church. And then I began to find my own way. I found out that I have psychic abilities. And I found it by experimenting. I actually had gone to a psychic, and she had told me to take a deck of cards and put a card one at a time with the face down onto my palm. And if it felt like it was warm, then it was red. If it felt like it was cold, then it was black. And so you do that. And I did that, and I made two piles with all of them face down. So I didn't know what they were. One pile that I thought might be the cold ones, and one pile that I thought might be the warm ones. And after doing about 20 or 25 of these cards, and I lifted them over, every card in the black pile was black. Every card in the red card pile, except for one, was red. And so that was my first taste of the fact that I do have psychic ability. It's called psychometry, where you can hold something in your hand and you'll know what's there. The reason for the hot and the cold, they're not really hot and cold. That's fooling your mind. So when you fool your mind, then your mind will allow things to bubble up from your unconscious. And you have a whole world, you have a universe in your subconscious. And if you can allow things to bubble up, then you can have conversations with anybody in any realm. And that's one of the ways that we teach people how to have afterlife connections. People commonly can have afterlife connections. Now, one method that's being used by psychotherapists is 98% successful. A method that I developed that is online and it's free, and I invite anybody to go through it. It's self-guided afterlife connections, and it is 86% successful. And so anybody can have these connections, and they're wonderful. So I then found out that I had psychic ability. So I explored some more, and I found out that I could sit down in front of a television or a computer monitor, and there are places that have what are called targets. They're pictures that are somewhere in the world. You have no idea where they are, but they're just pictures at random. And what you do is that they give you a code that's just meaningless numbers, and you then put the numbers into your mind. You close your eyes and relax, and you ask to be seen, whatever that is, at that location somewhere in the world. And so with just that series of numbers. And then after you do that, then you may get a picture in your mind. I found out that I can do that. So I can see a picture of something anywhere in the world. All I have to do is know a code or something to associate with it. I've had people put things on tables. I had a fellow in New Jersey who did this with me for a while. He wanted to see how this worked. And so he put things on his table in his office, and he then had me remote view them. This is called remote viewing. And so I remote viewed them, and I told him what it was that I saw. And I got one of the things that was on his table. It was a banker's lights, but I didn't get the target, the thing that he had actually put there. And I had drawings. I had several pages of drawings, and we couldn't figure out why I wasn't quite getting it, because I know I have remote viewing ability. He went home, and then all of a sudden he looked on a table in his home, and there were all the things that I had drawn. So what I was drawing, he had things in his office, but I was drawing things in his home. So there were things on a table. There was a bowl on the table, and that I saw, and there was a chest there, and that I saw, and he had a little bat cage that bats could fly into and nest, and that I saw. So what that showed me was that the universe is not what we think it is. So all of the things that we have learned from the time that we were children about the universe, about who we are, about this realm that we're in, have only been part of the truth, a very small part of the truth. The greatest part of the truth is that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So after I learned that I had remote viewing, I started to study this to find out more about the greater reality and what it is that we can find out about these other realms. And And as I studied, I actually cut my teeth on Leslie Flint's. Leslie Flint is somebody I could do a whole presentation on, but he has voices that come out of the dark when he's sitting in a room, and the voices just come, and we have thousands of recordings of them now. And they're people from the other side who come into the room and they speak and they describe what their life is like there. So I cut my teeth on Leslie Flint, and I found out things about the life after this life. And I learned vastly about that. And so then after that, I devoted my life to it. So for the past 20 years, I have been devoting my life to understanding the afterlife. And I've done that by listening to the people who are living there. So I go right to the horse's mouth. These are the people who are there now. They have made the transition. They're there, and they can tell us about what is going on in their life, what the things are like on the other side. And so that is the basis for everything that I do now. Everything that I tell you is going to be because people have been saying that from the other side. That's where the information comes from. I don't surmise it. I don't create it. I don't use my imagination. All of it is coming from the testimonies of people living on the other side. And in my books, you'll see in my books have 300-400 citations. And all of them are citations of people who are speaking from the other side. And the books also have links to videos and to audios that you can listen to, and you can get the same kind of information that I got. So I'd invite you to do that. So as a result of that, then I have been devoting my life to it. And so I wrote Your Eternal Self, which has all the evidence that your mind is not in your brain. Your mind doesn't even use your brain. You don't need a brain. And the reason for that is because you're a spiritual being. And you happen to be using it like an avatar. You use the body like an avatar. You do things in the physical realm. But in reality, you are a spiritual being just using the body in this realm. And so then the book tells you that, and it also tells you what your relationship is to other people in this realm, and also has some about the next realm, about the next life that we live. So after I wrote Your Eternal Self, and I had written a couple of other books, and I wrote some in my specialty. I'm a business communications professor. So I've been teaching business communications for decades. And I actually have my own online writing school. So you can go to businesswriting.com and you'll see my school. So then I've written those books. But then after I'd written Your Eternal Self, I thought I had done everything I could do. You know, what else can I do to help humanity to understand this? How can I help people to learn? Because it's life-changing when people learn the truth about what we know to be true now. And that was fine. So I just took a sigh of relief and kicked back my feet and decided that's the last book I'm going to write. That was until a year and a half ago when I got more books. And I'm actually driven to write the books. They're actually given to me. And so then after that, I wrote 4 more books. And so altogether, I think there are about 8 or 10 books. But what happens is that I will be given information, and in my studies, then I will find information that's given to me. And then I record that and make that available to people and let people know what it is. You can learn about the afterlife by listening to the people who are living there. And all you have to do is find the right sources of it. So I put it all into these books because I want you to read them. I want everybody to read them. And in the copyright to each one of the books, I tell people, if you would like to, go ahead and reproduce this book and give it away. I'm not worried about the money. You know, that's not the reason I write books. I want people to distribute these and give them out to other people freely. And in that way, we can make a change in humanity, can make a change in humankind. So that's my mission. That's what I'm doing now and with my life. And I don't think I'm going to write another book. I'm going to kick up my feet and not write another one. Actually, what we're doing now is I'm focusing on education. I want to help people to understand these truths. And so we're actually getting together, a group of us are getting together, and we're going to put together a magazine. And it is going to be a magazine that's devoted to helping people understand this. It'll come out every quarter. And we're also having an online school in which we're going to be teaching these things. So that's the future for me. And I invite you all to be involved in it. If you'd like to know more about it, just watch this space. You know, it's coming, and I hope it's coming very soon. So I would be happy to answer any questions about my background. If you had any questions before we have questions about everything else in the universe.
Definitely. I would love to, first of all, just going back to Leslie Flint,
Yeah.
I think that was something that was very fascinating to everyone.
Mhm.
Being able to hear, I believe he was a Swedish gentleman who was communicating with his wife every year. Is that correct?
He would come every 6 months.
Every 6 months.
So every 6 months, and that was for about 6 years. And he would come into the room, and he would be sitting there with Leslie Flint, just the two of them sitting in the room. And they'd have a tape recorder going, but that's all that else was going on in the room. And after a while, Leslie Flint, who had this capability, he was a direct voice medium. He would have this capability to sit in a room, and the voices would come through an ectoplasmic voice box that formed on his left shoulder. And we actually have photographs of it. So here he would be there with his ectoplasmic voice box, and out of the voice box would come these perfect, wonderful voices of children, of adults, of people from the United States, people from England, people from all around the world. Mahatma Gandhi came through, and Confucius came through, Victoria, Queen of England, came through. And so these wonderful people would come through, and then they would speak just like they were standing in front of a microphone. It's just wonderful.
Well, it did sound like he was just standing right in the room with
Yeah,
him. And
yeah.
I was wondering, I read a little bit more about it, and it looks like it's something that's exhausting for the medium to do.
Yes.
And that is the reason that we don't see very much of it these days. Is that true? Is it something that's just so physically exhausting, that we don't have a lot of people that practice it today? Or maybe you could tell me if there are people that are doing it today that we
Yeah, there are people, and the reason that we're not getting so many of them today, and that is physical mediums too. A physical medium sits in a room just like Leslie Flint did, but a physical medium sits in the dark or in a red light, and people manifest from the other side. They actually materialize, and they stand in the room and speak to people. And those who come into the room with that physical medium can have a discussion with their loved one who comes through. So both physical mediums and direct voice mediums and trance mediums, we have so few of them today only because of the fact that there's so many distracting things in the world. I mean, it used to be when in the spiritualist movement, you didn't have anything to do but sit around, and talk and drink coffee, and there were no televisions, there were no radios, there was nothing else to do. Certainly wasn't an internet. And so then people would actually engage in this. This would be a pastime. It would be something they would do just like playing cards. So they would get together in circles and these home circles then that allow the teams on the other side. There are just thousands and thousands of teams on the other side, anxious to work with people on this side to help these things happen, to help them come through. And all the people on this side have to do is sit and be dedicated to it and be willing to sit for an hour, hour and a half every week. And then, but they have to be willing to sit for like 8 or 10 years before something happens. And because the team on the other side, it takes a long time for them to develop this ability in people. And people just are not willing to do that anymore. I mean, everybody goes to church and spend an hour and a half on Sunday, but we can't get them to come into a circle. And if they sat in a circle instead of going to church, it'd be so much more rewarding. But I have a great affinity with the churches. With the religions because of what they do. Not so much though with the churches. But what Leslie Flint is able to do, he did with Dr. Dinshaw Nanji was the professor's name. He was a professor from Birmingham University in the UK. And Dr. Nanji came into the room and he would sit with Leslie Flint and he would converse with his wife, Annie, whose body had been dead for 2 years. And they just had these wonderful conversations. And if you listen to that interview that we had that evening, then you know what they're all about. But there are thousands of these people coming through from the other side. So I'd invite you all, if you want to look at Leslie Flint, it's leslieflint.com. And if you go to leslieflint.com, you can listen to these recordings. The people say, they describe what happens in the moments just before they're passing to the next life, what happens immediately after their pass, what their lives are like there, what they suggest for us in the way we should live our lives here. And it's all there. All you have to do is go and listen to it. It's wonderful. And so that's the source of all of my work. You know, the Annie Nanji and Dr. Nanji sitting there talking with each other, other people coming through from the other side. And there are such uplifting, wonderful, exciting things happening. And one of the reasons they're happening is because they, on the other side, when I say they, I'm talking about thousands and thousands of people, are dedicated to helping us understand these truths about reality, because they don't want us to grieve. They don't want us to have to feel like life is worthless, or that this is all there is to life. And what they want us to do is understand that this is just a spiritual time. We're having it. This is a spiritual plane. The Earth's plane is a spiritual plane, just like the next plane is. The only difference is that the next plane does not have endings. It doesn't have all of the negatives. It doesn't have all of the problems that we have in the Earth plane. So then what we're doing in this spiritual plane is we're preparing ourselves, we're learning lessons, and this is the hard one. We're in a really hard school now. This school is like, it's like boot camp. You know, this is no playground here. What we're in is we're learning lessons, and we're understanding things, and we're growing, but it's sometimes hard. And so that's part of what we chose to be here. We chose to be here during this time, and we chose the crucible. We chose a time that would be full of problems and endings, you know, the things that would happen to us. And so what happens is that there are people like Leslie Flint who come, and there are thousands of people on the other side dedicated to helping us understand. All we have to do is tap into it. All we have to do is listen, because they're anxious for us to understand. We have a circle here in my home, and our circle meets every week. We meet on Sunday night. And this circle then is an experimental circle by those on the other side. What they wanted to do is to see if a group of people dedicated themselves to this work, what they could do with just a group of people who came in from off the street. And so we have a group of people, we have 6 people in the circle now. It took 10 years for it to start to work. And then after 4 more years, then we started to get manifestations. Right now, their experimental has been very successful. That we have 4 trance mediums, meaning they go into trance and people speak through them. 1 physical medium, and the physical medium is developing now. He's developing ectoplasm, which means he'll have fluids come out of his body that will result in things happening in the room, things moving around, materializations in which people come into the room and speak to their loved ones or other people in the room. So all of that's happening in this experimental group. They've proven that what can happen is if people will just sit every week dedicated to this work, they will help to make sure that something happens. And so that experiment has been very successful. It's happening right now. And we are having, in fact, I'm building another cabinet downstairs because we're actually having 2 physical mediums, and right here in the middle of the cornfields out here in central Illinois, of all places. Anybody can, if you form a circle and you meet consistently, just instead of going to bowling league or whatever it is you would do, you just spend an hour and a half having fun. You sing songs, you raise your vibration we sing pop songs. And the team on the other side loves ZZ Top. And so what we do is we sing ZZ Top, and we sing these songs, and it raises our vibration. It makes us joyful. And that energy then can be used by those on the other side. So any circle, if you just want to meet for an hour, hour and a half every week, for several years, and just have fun with the whole thing, then they will honor that on the other side. They will work with you to try to make something happen. And then when that happens, when you actually see things, when you see in our circle, we see a table traveling, we have our hands on the table and it's traveling all across the room. You know that it's true, that the people on the other side are helping. They are real people who are helping on the other side. And so you're assured of that. You've got the proof. because they're doing that with you. They're doing that for you. So all you have to do is reach out to this team and by sitting, and they will demonstrate to you the reality of the life after this life. And we just need to get more circles that are willing to do that.
That's amazing. It sounds like a really fun place to be, one every week and a half or so.
Every
And
week.
it's interesting. We have questions about that. Why does it take that many years to be able to get any activity or manifestations?
Yeah, it depends upon the people that are involved. Sometimes a physical medium, a person who has this ability to sit in a room and have these things happen. Sometimes they can come up and just almost immediately they can sit in the room and things start to happen. If any of you have had a lot of strange occurrences around you during your life, you may have some abilities as physical mediums. But for most of us, it takes them time on the other side to dedicate themselves to bringing forth this energy. They change us. They change us in the circle. What they said to us is they're changing us at the molecular level. So they're actually making changes in our genes, in our molecules, and that's preparing us. So it's taken that long for them to get things together, to figure out how they could work with us, to make the changes in us that needed to be made, and then for things to happen. Sometimes it is less time, but most of the time you can plan on spending several years, quite a few years at it. But the rewards are wonderful. You know, it is just so exciting.
That's wonderful. So Sherry is asking, and I think this is a good question as well, is it possible to join an existing circle, or does it have to be all of the same people together working over time?
The problem is there just are not very many circles.
Yeah.
We have very few circles. I don't know of more than a dozen in the United States.
Wow.
And there may be more out there that we just don't hear about, but there are very few circles. But what we're doing is we're encouraging people to get together. Now, we have a circle on Wednesday evening that meets over Zoom. And this circle is intended to help people to figure out whether you have abilities and you would like to get together with other people. And if you would like to do that, if you find out you like to do it, then all you have to do is start a meetup group in your area. And a meetup group having to do with the afterlife and with paranormal and with metaphysical. And when you start a meeting like that, then you have people come in and they meet and you talk about these issues. And after a while, you find out that there are people whom you would like to have in your circle. You are harmonious with them. You know that they are people who would work well with each other. And so then you start the circle. But you have to start your own circle because there are so few circles now in the United States. For our circle is going to be closed until they're finished working with us, until we're developed. And then after that we're developed, then we're going to be bringing people in to get them started. So we'll have people visiting and they'll see what happens in the room with the physical mediums. And then they will go back to and start their teams. But that's going to be, I don't know, probably a year, 2 years, 3 years off. But it's very difficult to find a circle now.
Oh, interesting. So tell me, there's a question from Angie that says, my husband is getting close to believing in the afterlife, but has a question that I couldn't answer. He asked if we are all souls, and there are so many more people on the planet now than there were, say, 100 years ago. Where did all of these souls come from? Is there any explanation in the information that you've been given?
Yes, the greater, our universal intelligence, which is what makes the universe, makes the world, makes us, everything, mountains, planets, everything is our universal intelligence. In the universal intelligence, there are higher selves. These are just individual higher selves that are part of the universal intelligence, and they live on various worlds or various realms. And in the higher selves, then, there are souls who decide that they want to incarnate. They want to put somebody into a place. It doesn't have to be Earth School. There are many, many other places where they could go. But they come into Earth School. And so then, in order to learn lessons and enjoy the experience and to grow in love and compassion, then they start an individual person in Earth School. That soul then is united with the individual person who's in earth school, but the soul still has connections to the higher self and still knows what's going on. These individuals who grow up in earth school then are new people. Those are new people, but they're still part of our universal intelligence. It's as though they have lived forever, but they're now coming into earth school and they're growing in earth school. And once the person grows in earth school and comes up in earth school, then that person, it will stay an individual for eternity. And there is no, I mean, they don't reincarnate, or they don't blend with the ocean of the oversoul. None of that. They're individuals and they stay as individuals. But they call the earth the nursery. And the reason they call it the nursery is because individuals then begin here. They add to the knowledge of our higher selves that we're each a part of. And then we go on as individuals and continue to grow and continue to learn.
It's fascinating. So this is our nursery where we are right now.
Right.
Candace asked a very pertinent question. So these types of things are all descriptions of what I would have been terrified of previously and label as evil. How do you know it is not? How does all of this fit in with your Christian upbringing, the Bible or Jesus, or doesn't it? Thank you.
Yeah, it does. Once you find out the truth, once you find out what is really true, then you realize that none of that all of that was fake, that you were fearful of something that didn't exist. Now, the reason that we know that is because our universal intelligence is full of unconditional love. It is nothing but love. Love for us as individuals, and there's an effort on the part of the universal intelligence to bring all of us into a feeling of bliss and love with each other, trying to bring us into a compassionate relationship with each other here and with each other as we go on to the next life. And so there's unconditional love. There's no room for evil. There's just no room for anything other than love. And as a result of that, then we know that it couldn't be the demonic things that were described in the early days. But what they were doing was in the early church, when they described something as a demon, there are earthbound spirits. There are spirits which are not so nice. And so they are called earthbounds. And the earthbound spirits are here for a variety of reasons. Some of them just don't want to leave the earth plane because this is where all the sensual pleasure is. So some of them, if they were drunkards, if they were alcoholics, then they would stay on the earth plane, even though they weren't using a body anymore after they had left the body behind. And they would go into all the taverns or into all the bars, and they would stay in there and they would try to influence people there. There are those kinds of people called earthbounds that are around us. They are not involved in any of the work that we do because we're too boring for them. They're never going to get any place with us because of the fact that we are spiritual people. And so then they would go to somebody who was addicted, somebody who was an alcoholic. They would go to somebody who's easily influenced, and they would influence them. So as far as whether there are, what is behind all of this, it is love. We know that the universe is love. All we have to do is let go of what we were taught as children, that was self-seeking and greedy, and that we were taught that we have to get things for ourselves and not do for other people. All of those things that we were taught as children, we have to let those go. And once we let those go, what's left is love. What's left is love for everybody, because that's the basis. That's the basis of our reality.
All that matters, everything that binds us and everything that is important is love. I agree. But David is asking something, and I think it's probably something that a lot of people wonder. I want to ask what spirits are doing with their time, but there's no time there. So how can I speak with spirit if they don't have time to be in or out, I guess? Could you maybe clarify that for him?
Yeah, the time is a more difficult issue. There is what they say is they have a sense of time. They do have time. They don't have the sunrise, sunset. They don't have years. They don't have any clock ticking off time. So they don't have any sense of time like that. But they do have time in the sense that from day to day, things are happening. The children who pass over as children continue to grow in the same rate they would if they were still on the earth plane. So there is a time, and that time then is what allows them to do things. So what they do is when they live the life after this life, it's exactly like this life. This is a spiritual plane. We're on a spiritual plane. So in the next life, they have jobs, they go to concerts, they play sports, they can have motorcycles, they can have boats, they can if they want to, they can learn how to play an instrument. They have libraries and they can garden. There are gardens in their houses. Every one of them they have their house. So everything is exactly the same as it is here, but it's much more wonderful. And there are none of the drawbacks, none of the negatives that we have with our world. So what they're doing then is in the life after this life is they are living their lives. They are growing and learning. They're learning from each other. They're learning from the people who come in to speak to them. There's a group of people who had gotten together that was discussed by one of those speaking with the other side. And they all got together because they were Lutherans and Martin Luther came down to speak with them. And so there are fascinating things that are going on with them in their lives, and they continue to grow. They continue to become more compassionate, to become more loving. And so there are exciting things happening in their lives, and they have parties, they get together, they have gatherings and they get together. So it's very much like on this life, but only the wonderful things about this life, and then even more, 100 times more than that. So they are active on the other side.
Well, I want you to reassure all of the parents that even though our kids keep growing, they will still look exactly the same way when we transition. Could you maybe talk about that? Because everyone's saying, oh, they're going to grow so old, I won't recognize them. Maybe you could just say something.
Yeah, sure. I can say something about that. They will grow older.
They will grow older, but when we see them, we will, of course, be able to recognize them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We will see them the same way that they transition.
When they come in, right, when they come back into the earth plane to communicate with us, they will project an image of who they are. And the image that they project to us is of the person that they were at the age that they were. So that's the projection when they come back into the earth plane. But when you have your reunion, they will grow into their 20s or 30s.
But we'll recognize them, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're waiting for you. And that's what, I mean, they're gonna, they will be all over you. And so no, you will recognize them without any problem.
Well, I can't wait to see every single one of these kids that are a part of helping parents heal. I feel like I know them as my own kids right now. Kathy's asking an interesting question. Are alcoholics earthbound?
Not all alcoholics are earthbound. We're talking about earthbounds are people who have left their bodies. So they no longer are in bodies.
Okay.
So they've left their bodies and then they stay on the earth plane because they just want to get their kicks. They liked whatever it was that was on the earth plane. They like the alcohol, they like the addictions, they like the sex, they like whatever it is that they like. They don't want to leave that. And so they won't go on to the next life. And they'll stay on the earth plane. So they're hidden, they're unseen, but they're here. They're among us right now. But when I say among us, not this group, they are out in the streets or they are in the bars. So they are there all over. And the people, we can communicate with them, but you don't want to communicate with them because they're earthbounds. So these people who are earthbounds who were alcoholics and who love drinking, they then will populate the bars. They'll stay where the bars are and they'll try to influence people who are easily influenced. People like us who are on a higher spiritual plane, we're just boring. They don't care about us. So they would not have an influence on us. And not only that, but we are not easily influenceable. So we wouldn't have a problem with that.
Well, Susila is saying, when souls leave Earth and after their life review, do they go through like a rehabilitation sort of a sort of rehabilitation where they have their energy revitalized, especially for those who have gone through months of something like cancer? Could you maybe speak to that for us?
Yeah, a couple of things. It's really interesting, but people who are suffering from a debilitating illness and they're reaching the final days of using this body, they are actually invigorated. So they're given energy from the other side. So, but that's to help them through, to help them make it that passing. If they're in a coma, if they're gone, if they're not, if they're in no way present, if you can't communicate with them, they're already on the other side. The body is not significant. And the things that happen in the body, for instance, if they had convulsions after they had already gone into coma, then those convulsions are happening in the body. They're not part of that. They say that repeatedly from the other side. Once the body is no longer useful to them, they are gone. They're already on the other side. So we don't have to worry about them and what's happening. People do not feel pain at the passing. So if you had somebody who was in an accident, or in fact, there's, did I tell you the story about the man and his fiance's sister? A man and his fiance's sister they were riding in a car, and the man was blinded by the sunlight, and they hit a tractor trailer. And when they hit the tractor trailer, the man and his fiance's sister had risen up above. They were 30 feet above the scene, and he was holding her hand. And they looked down on the scene and they saw the accident as it happened. They had been taken out before the accident happened. So we know that that's true, that nobody feels the pain of an accident. Once the accident is going to happen and it's the exit points when they're going to be leaving, they're not there. They're out of there. They're on to the next life. And so you don't have to feel like people feel pain at that point. Even if the body is agitated, even if the body is writhing in pain, if they're already gone, if they're already out of there and not able to speak to you, that means they're on the other side. They're not experiencing that. The body is experiencing it, but the body is meaningless.
That's very reassuring. Melissa said something that's very cute. She said, my son told me through a medium that heaven is like Harry Potter with nothing evil, all love. I think that's adorable.
Yeah, that's true. That's wonderful.
And Freya is saying, I'm late today. My question is our time of transitioning predetermined before starting our lives?
There are exit points, and there's usually more than one. And what happens is, as we go through our lives, when we have reached the point where we have accomplished our purpose, then the next exit point would be the time when we would exit. And that exit point then can be revised, but it really is pretty generally something that is going to happen. One little boy who was just about to pass, he was on his way into the other side. And he said, I'm please God, I don't want to pass now. I want to stay here so I can tell my little sister, who is now here, what life is like and what's going to be happening with me. Can you just give me another year? He in fact lived for another year when he was due to pass that night. Anita Morjani, I don't know if you know Anita Morjani, who had her book Dying to Be Me. And she was actually, she had tumors the size of grapefruits in her system. And she was completely gone. She was going to be out. They didn't think she was going to make it through the night. She had a near-death experience. She communicated and learned that the problem that she had been in her relationships. They were eating away at her body because of her relationships. And so when she woke up, she resolved to change those relationships. Within a week, she was out of the hospital. Within a short time after that, she had no signs of the cancer. It was gone. And so that was not an exit point for her. So the exit point then could be changed. But if somebody's in an accident or somebody is in a situation where they're going to pass, then that can be postponed only if it's not an exit point. If it's an exit point, then that's the time that they have chosen. They've done everything they needed to do, or everything they wanted to do. And that's really hard. I know it's hard. I mean, it's hard to think that that somebody would have accomplished everything they need to do when we don't want them to leave. But then that is the time when they were going to leave, and they've done everything that they needed to do.
Well, I just wanted to clarify something. There are a lot of parents who have children who have suffered from overdoses or maybe were alcoholics themselves. I have heard that there is a place of spiritual healing that all of our kids go, that they don't stay here. They don't necessarily, and I'm not sure about the earthbound thing. There are a lot of people in the chat box who are very concerned about that. And I've never heard that before. I've only heard about light and love. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that spiritual healing that goes on for all of our kids who do struggle with addiction, who transition and who are in a much better place and who are in a place of love and light.
But it's only a small number that are earthbound. So, you look at the number of people that we have in the world today who are, it's maybe a smattering of people who are going to stay on the earth plane because they want to continue drinking or want to continue with addiction. None of the children that you're describing, none of them are in that group. They would not be earthbounds. They would have gone on then. So there's just no doubt about that. They're not the people who would be hardcore earthbounds. And what happens is that for those who did have an addiction, for those who did have alcoholism, they are receiving counseling and treatment. They're receiving help immediately when they cross over to the next plane of life. And they then are able to find their own way. They grow out of that very quickly. So they grow out of the need for it. They grow out of the problems that they have. Any problems with the body are no longer there. Any problems with conflicts and difficulties are no longer there. So they grow out of that very quickly, and they no longer have the addictions. They no longer are alcoholics on the other side. And so all of that happens very quickly after they cross over. They are not earthbounds. There's a very small number of people who are earthbounds. They are hardcore people. And they are not the people, they're not your children. Your children would not be involved in that. They would not be earthbound.
We had so many questions about that. And I've never heard of that before. So I know that none of our kids are part of any of that group of people. But I also just wanted to have there's a question here about suicide, about obviously there's healing that goes on the other side for suicide as well. Would you say that that's part of the soul's plan when we come in?
No. Suicide and murder are not part of a soul's plan. So that is free will. We all have free will. So the choice to murder or the choice to take one's own life is not in the plan, and that just happens, and that there are circumstances. Now, somebody could have chosen to be in a life circumstance that would be very difficult, and that they might end up in a situation like that. That there is a chance, but that is not in the soul's plan. Now, those who have taken their own life are met with great compassion, great love, concern on the other side. So they're immediately met on the other side by counselors who work with them and help them to make the transition. They very quickly then are relieved at the fact that things are not as bad as they thought they were, and so then they go on, they heal on the next life. That's a great part of what happens when they cross over to the next life. And we hear that over and over again. These are things that we hear repeatedly from the people who have gone on to the next life.
Wonderful. So a lot of people have been asking about whether or not our kids keep the same personality, or if we keep the same personality on the other side. Could you maybe talk about that?
Yeah, it's just like we got on a plane and flew to another country, and you get off the plane and you're the same person. And then when people come and visit you in another 10 years, then you have all the same characteristics, the same attitudes, the same loves, the same feelings. The thing is that they are going to know much more about your life than you know about theirs. So they're watching you. I mean, they are around you. They come anytime that you ask them to come. They will be involved in anything that you're involved in. If you have a birthday party, they'll be there. They are going to be part of your life, so they'll know what your life is like. And then you'll learn about what their life is like.
Well, and we can definitely feel them if we're open to feeling their hugs and knowing that they're there with us. Interesting. Lisa is asking, by the next life, do you mean reincarnating? But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about the next life being in the afterlife. Is that correct?
Yes, reincarnation is misunderstood. And this is what they tell us. The reincarnation is like this. If you've read any of Rob Schwartz's books, Your Soul's Plan or Your Soul's Gift, in our planning, when our lives are being planned, our souls, which are in on this, they're part of the higher self, so they know what's going on. Our souls, our individual selves that grow up in Earth School, we have to start with nothing, because we got to grow up here to get the abilities then to learn lessons. And so, but our souls that are always part of this that's going on. Our souls and the planning group, which includes guides and others, then they take pieces from other lives. There was something that a person wanted to learn in the higher self. They wanted to learn more about what happened in this person's life. This person had led a tragic life, and you wanted to know how they could have done things differently in their life. So they'll take part of that life and they'll make it part of this new individual. So in the plan, this individual will be going through circumstances that will help them learn, will help them understand what happened in this other life that's in the higher self. So each one of our plans can be made up of bits of other plans, or a whole framework. You can take a whole framework from another life that was in the higher self, and you can make that the basis for this new person who's coming into the earth plane. It's not reincarnation, it's an incarnation in which we're tied up with that person. That's where past life regressions come from. So we're tied up with that person because of that framework, but we are individuals and we stay individuals. We do not reincarnate as an individual. I, as Craig, am never going to come back to the earth plane except to help other people in spirit. We remain individuals throughout eternity then, after this time. So your loved ones then are going to be there. They're available now to communicate with you. When you pass over to the next side, then you will have a reunion with them immediately. They'll be there. They don't reincarnate. They don't leave. We've had some connections with people like Confucius, and that's 2,500 years old. Confucius is there. We've had people who are from the Roman Empire. They're there. So they've come through. The individuals that we are stay as individuals. So they will be there. They won't reincarnate, meaning that they're somehow going to change and become another person. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think that it's reassuring to a lot of people. I'm interested in knowing this question from Sherry. How involved are our children in our lives here after they transition?
They are as involved as you want them to be. So if you want to have them involved in your life, you need to talk to them. You need to communicate with them. But what happens is they will get from you, they are only a thought away. In other words, all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, everything that's going on with you, they get wherever they are. They may be out there on a playing field playing ball, or they may be in a library. And if you think about those things, or if you're disturbed, or if you're feeling bad, they will come to you. So they're only a thought away. So they then are always in communication with you. They will come to you. They will spend time with you. The more you communicate with them, the more time they spend with you. And it isn't that they don't want to spend time with you. It's that they'll wait for you they'll wait to hear from you They'll wait to hear that you are disturbed or that you want to talk to them, and then they will come to you. Otherwise, they come when, if there's a birthday party, if there's an anniversary, if there's a new baby, they will come then, and they will be part of all of that. They come within that gathering. They're there with you unseen. But otherwise, then the more you communicate with them, the more they will come around and spend time with you. They're always available. They're just a thought away. Just say, you know, honey, I wish I could talk to you right now. Bam, they're here. So that's all you have to do. Now you have to learn how to hear what they have to say.
Hear the answers that they're
How to
sending.
hear the answers now.
Well, we have just a little bit of time left, and I really want to make sure that people are able to access this. Kathy says, Craig, your books and self-guided afterlife connection were a lifesaver for me. That and helping parents heal, which is very kind of her to say. I was wondering if maybe you could tell us how to access the self-guided afterlife connection. Is that something that you did as a class, or was it is it something that's recorded?
It's online. It's a training program that I developed, and you can go to afterlifeinstitute.org, afterlifeinstitute.org/self-guided/ So it's afterlifeinstitute.org/self-guided/ and that's it. It'll take you to it. You can get on there anytime. And there are 8 stages that you'll go through. And each stage then increasingly gets you into the point where you can sit down anywhere. If you go through to the end, you can sit down anywhere and have a conversation with a loved one on the other side.
That's wonderful. So Sabina is saying, I'm doing the self-guided now. Craig kindly responded to my writings every night and assured me I had wonderful connections. So grateful to him. So thank you for doing that, Craig.
Yeah.
So is this something that it's on the Afterlife Institute website, but it's available there for people. So Sue is saying he is awesome to quickly respond, which is wonderful. So we all truly appreciate that. And I just want to say that this has been fascinating. I hope that we'll be able to have you back again to talk more. I have a feeling that even though you say that you're done writing, you may have more books in you. And we certainly appreciate all these books. And is there anything that you'd like to say in closing to our group?
Yeah, just be assured, just know that it's true that all of our loved ones are on the other side, and they know what we're doing, they know what we're feeling, they know what we're thinking. And all we have to do if we want to communicate with them is just sit down and relax and talk. Just talk. And then the first thing that comes into your mind is if after you say something, then the first notion, that's their response. And they may even give you a response while you're talking. So it's that quick. So if you say something immediately, that you get the response, say something back, and then the conversation will flow. Yeah, you can, and we have one of the parts of the training program is a daydream, where you just daydream, and you'll see this lovely flow conversation just coming naturally.
That's wonderful. And, you know, it's so interesting because we have a lot of parents in our group who are able to communicate with their kids, and their words just pop right into their heads. And the reason that they know that and one of these people is Carol, for instance, and the reason that she knows that it's her son, Tyler, is because it's not something that she would have said herself. It's something that he would have said. And so it's always fun to be able to experience this and to have it validated by people like you, and to understand that it's real and that our kids are still right here, and that they do want to communicate with us.
Yes.
And they're just a heartbeat away. And this whole journey is all about love. And thank you so much. This was wonderful. Have a wonderful evening. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everyone is unmuted so that they can say thank you. Actually, they already are. Nobody turned
Craig.
so go ahead.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks,
Thank
Craig.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Craig.
you so much, Craig.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Craig.
you.
For
so much.
meditation. I
Thank
use
you.
it a
Thank
lot.
you.
Good
It's
night.
voices. You've helped me communicate with
Thank you.
kinds of
Wonderful.
Yeah.